Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Once upon a time, in a faraway kingdom, a beautiful queen sat by her window, sewing during the winter. As she pricked her finger, 3 drops of blood fell on the snow. Seeing the contrast, she wished for a daughter with skin as white as snow, lips as red as blood, and hair as black as ebony. Her wish was granted, and she gave birth to a baby girl named Snow White. Sadly, the queen passed away, and the king remarried a woman who was beautiful, but vain and cruel. The new queen owned a magical mirror that she often asked, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all?" The mirror always answered, "You, my queen, are the fairest of them all." But as Snow White grew, she became more and more beautiful, and one day, when the queen asked her mirror the usual question, it responded, "Snow White is the fairest of them all." Overcome with jealousy, the queen ordered a huntsman to take Snow White into the forest and kill her. However, when the huntsman raised his knife, he could not bear to harm the innocent girl. Instead, he told her to run away and never return. Snow White ran deep into the forest, frightened and alone, until she stumbled upon a small cottage. Inside the cottage, she found tiny chairs, a little table, and 7 small beds. Exhausted, she fell asleep. That evening, the owners of the cottage, 7 dwarfs, returned home. Their names were Doc, Grumpy, Happy, Sleepy, Bashful, Sneezy, and Dopey. When they found Snow White, she told them her story, and the kind dwarfs took pity on her. They invited her to stay with them, but warned her to be cautious of the evil queen. Meanwhile, the queen discovered that Snow White was still alive. Furious, she disguised herself and devised a wicked plan. She first went to the cottage dressed as a peddler and laced Snow White's bodice so tightly that she fainted. When the dwarfs returned, they found her unconscious and loosened the laces, saving her life. Not willing to give up, the queen tried again, this time with a poisoned comb. She placed it in Snow White's hair, causing her to collapse, but once again, the dwarfs removed the comb and revived her. Determined to end Snow White once and for all, the queen prepared a poisoned apple. Disguised as an old woman, she offered Snow White the beautiful fruit. Snow White took a bite, and the poison worked instantly, sending her into a deep, death-like sleep. When the dwarfs found her, they were heartbroken and placed her in a glass coffin, unable to bury her because of her untouched beauty. Time passed, and one day, a handsome prince riding through the forest saw the glass coffin. He was struck by Snow White's beauty and asked the dwarfs if he could take her to his castle. As his servants lifted the coffin, the motion caused the piece of poisoned apple to dislodge from her throat. Snow White opened her eyes, alive once more. Overjoyed, the prince asked for her hand in marriage, and she agreed. A grand wedding was held, and the wicked queen was invited. When she arrived, she was forced to wear red-hot iron shoes and dance until she collapsed. Snow White and the prince lived happily ever after,